Mr. Speaker, let me turn to the issue over the UK's contributions to the European Union. I want to be clear with the House how the demand for the UK to repay money has come about and why the scale and timing of this demand is unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, in an organisation like the EU, if your economy grows a little faster or a little slower, then there can be adjustments every year to the amount that you pay. In some years, the UK adjustment has been negative, as it was in 2008, 2009, 2011 and 2012, and in some years we contribute a little bit more. This happens every year. And when the UK is growing at 3% a year, and many European economies are growing much more slowly, it would not be surprising to find Britain being asked to pay a little bit more this year. But what has never happened is for €2 billion to be demanded. This represents around 20% of our net contribution to the EU last year. Member States collectively are being asked to pay almost 4 times the highest gross figure requested in recent years. And it is simply not acceptable for the EU to make these kinds of demands and to do so through a fast-track process lasting barely a month. €2 billion is bigger than many countries' entire gross contributions. It cannot just be nodded through by the EU bureaucracy as some kind of technical adjustment. It is British taxpayers' money, and it is not small change, but it is a vast sum. So this has to be examined in detail and discussed properly. That is why I interrupted the Council meeting on Friday to seek an urgent resolution to this issue. I was supported by the Prime Ministers of Italy, Holland, Malta, Greece and others, and the Council agreed there would be an urgent discussion with finance ministers to resolve the issue going forwards. Mr. Speaker, it's not just about the scale of the money being demanded, it is also the timetable. The Commission admits it does not actually need this. Indeed, the President of the Commission wasn't even aware of it on Thursday evening. So there is no pressing need for the money to be paid. There are fundamental questions over the fairness of these payments. For example, the proposal is for funds to be taken from the UK to correct historic contributions to the EU budget dating back to 2002 and to be redistributed based on the current share of gross national income to countries which only joined the EU in 2004 and 2007. But it's not just that Britain would lose out. It is also perverse that a country like Greece, at the heart of the crisis in the Eurozone, is being asked to find money to pay back to countries like Germany. And the revised gross national income statistics on which these adjustments are based are also not yet finalised. The numbers are a provisional estimate, and the EU-wide process to quality assure the figures will not conclude until well into 2015. So, Mr. Speaker, Britain will not be paying €2 billion to anyone on the 1st of December. And we reject this scale of payment. We will be challenging this in every way possible. We want to check on the way the statistics were arrived at, the methodology that was used. We will crawl through this in exhaustive detail. Mr. Speaker, the events at last week's Council will not, to use some British understatement, have enhanced the reputation of the European Union in the United Kingdom. As the Italian Prime Minister put it, even the EU's founding fathers would turn to Euroscepticism when faced with some of the things that you've seen here. The European Union has to change. It has to regain trust. And that starts by understanding and respecting the fact that these payments and adjustments are about the hard-earned taxes of its citizens. This is just one of the many challenges in our long campaign to reform the European Union, but it is vital we stick to the task. We have already cut the EU budget, got Britain out of the bailout schemes, vetoed a treaty that wasn't in our national interest, made vital progress on cutting red tape and completing the single market, and we're leading the push for what will be the biggest bilateral trade deal in history between the EU and the US. None of this is easy. Progress is hard-won. It requires perseverance and hard work. We will carry on defending our national interests and fighting with all we have to reform the EU over the coming years. And, Mr. Speaker, at the end of 2017, it will not be the Brussels bureaucracy or the politicians of any party who will decide whether we remain in the EU or not. If I'm Prime Minister, it will be the British people who make that decision through an in-out referendum. Others who aspire to this office and who refuse to give the British people their say should explain themselves to the House and the country, and I commend this statement to the House.